give a summary in Zulu of what she had indicated inside, and then just highlight the key objectives of the Lekgotla over the next 2 days. Over to you, Honorable Premier. And then thereafter, we'll take a Q&A from the media.
Hey, so from toy. Hey. Jeez. Zonke le nto ngishilo ngisakhumbula nokuthi bengithini. Yes.
That's very brief, Premier.
Let me think. Bengithini kan. Okay. Siyanibingelela. Silapha namhlanje kule Lekgotla yakahulumeni waKwaZulu-Natal lapho sihlangana khona sibheka ukuthi ngonyaka ozayo sizobe sineminyaka engamashumi amathathu 30 years selokhu uhulumeni wentando yeningi abakhona lapha eNingizimu Afrika. Lo nyaka ke subona njengonyaka obaluleke kakhulu emphakathini wethu nasekusebenzeni kukahulumeni ngoba unyaka lo wandulela ukuthi kuzobe sekuphela isikhathi salo hulumeni wesithupha kwi-administration kahulumeni. Namhlanje njengoba sihlangene la sizobe sibheka ukuthi umsebenzi osuwenziwe uhulumeni ungakanani ekuletheni izidingo zomphakathi. Sibheka futhi izinselelo esithe sabhekana nazo njengohulumeni emsebenzini ebesinikezwe wona ukuthi silethe izidingo zomphakathi. Angeke sisakubalula ukuthi siyazazi ingqinamba ezinye siye sabhekana nazo njengalokhulumeni kanye nesifundazwe saKwaZulu-Natal okuhlanganisa i-COVID-19, okuhlanganisa imbhikisho esabanayo, okuhlanganisa imvula noma ama-floods esabanawo ngo-April no-May ngonyaka owedlulile. Kodwa okunye okube inhlekelele okuqhubekayo nokuba inhlekelele emphakathini yethu nasemsebenzini esiwenzayo ukuba khona kwalokhu cisha kombani kwesinye isikhathi othola ukuthi abatshali bezimali noma izimboni eziningi ziyakhubazeka emsebenzini wazo okuzoba ke nomthelela omubi ekutheni sikwazi ukukhulisa umnotho nanokuthi abantu bakwazi ukusebenza kakhulukazi ingqinamba ezinkulu esizibonayo ezenzakalayo ngokungabi khona kukagesi umthelela obuhlungu nomubi owenzeka kosomabhizinisi abancane noma amabhizinisi amancane. Ingakho ke njengesifundazwe njengoba sila ezinye zezinto esizozenza ukwenza isiqiniseko sokuthi lo msebenzi esiwenzayo njengohulumeni uyakuletha ukusizakala kosomabhizinisi, siyakuletha ukusizakala emphakathini ukuze sikwazi ukuthi uhulumeni njengoba simbonile umongameli ekhuluma ebeka inhlelo uhulumeni anazo zokuthi kuze kuqedwe ngokucishwa kukagesi nathi kufanele njengesifundazwe kube khona esikwenzayo okuzosiza ekutheni sisebenzise indlela ezihlukahlukene zokuphehla ugesi. Siyazi ukuthi njengeKwaZulu-Natal sinazo izinto ezinjengolwandle sinazo izinto ezinjengelanga nomoya okuwukuthi singakwazi ukusebenzisa ezinye indlela zokuphehla ugesi ezingagcini futhi sezisakhela amathuba omsebenzi noma imisebenzi sezisidonsela futhi nabatshali bezimali nezimboni ezihlukahlukene ezingagcina sezizovula inkampani zokwazi ukusiza ukuphehla ugesi. Kodwa ke konke lokhu sizokwazi ukuthi sikubalule kakhulu ngesonto elizayo mangabe sesinikeza umbiko. Lekgotla ke le esihlangene ngayo lapha namhlanje izophinda ibheke ukuthi njengohulumeni ngabe sisebenza kanjani, siwubuholi bonke nje bakahulumeni, abasebenzi bakahulumeni, ongqongqoshe beminyango ehlukahlukene, ukuze sibone ukuthi ngempela lokho esithi sizokwenza noma lokho kufanele sikwenze sinawo yini amava ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi kube impumelelo. Kanjalo sizobheka futhi nolusha lethu. Siyayazi inkinga ulusha olubhekene nayo kungabi khona kwamathuba omsebenzi. Siney'nhlelo ke ey'ningi esinazo esizokhuluma ngazo la ukuthi so far ngabe singakanani okuhle okwenziwe lezo nhlelo ekutheni abantu abasha bakwazi ukuvula amabhizinisi wabo, bakwazi futhi ukuthi amathuba omsebenzi atholakale. Sizokhuluma futhi nangamanzi. Siyazi ukuthi iy'ndawo ey'ningi lapha esifundazweni sethu saKwaZulu-Natal ziswela amanzi. Kunabantu abahamba iy'nyanga amasonto bengenawo amanzi. Sithathe-ke isinqumo njengesifundazwe ukuthi nathi kufanele kube khona indima esidlalayo ekusizeni omasipala ekuletheni iy'dingo kakhulukazi zamanzi kanye nogesi. Okunye okuyinkinga enkulu esibhekene nayo njengesifundazwe futhi esizimisele ukuthi sibhekane nayo ngqo ukuba khona kobugebengu obudlangile emphakathini yethu. Imphakathi yethu ayisakwazi ukuphila ngokukhululeka esifundazweni. Amabhizinisi awakwazi ukusebenza ngokukhululeka. Asizukwazi futhi ukuthi siphakamise umnotho uma ngabe iy'ndawo zethu zigcwele izigebengu naney'ndawo abantu abasebenza kuzona kunobugebengu obuningi. Sibonile ngesonto elidlulile ubuhlungu esithe sabhekana nabo njengesifundazwe salapha KwaZulu-Natal ngesikhathi omunye wosaziwayo bethu ohlonishwa umhlaba wonke obizwa ngokuthi uKenan noma aka Forbes edlula emhlabeni kanye nomngani wakhe uTebelo ngesihluku esibuhlungu esisibonile umhlaba wonke nobuhlungu obuziwe umphakathi wonke nemndeni nabangani sikubuka lokho. Kanjalo ngalo lena lelo sonto sibonile kubhubhiswa abantu bakithi eMarian Hill, kubulawa khona kulelo sonto inkosi yesizwe yakwaNdaba, induna uMkhize, induna uNgcobo kanye nabanye abantu nje abaningi nje abathe badlula emhlabeni ngezigameko ezodlame nezigameko zobugebengu ezikhona endaweni. Sibonile emasontweni adlulile emathaveni koMaritzburg, koNanda, sibonile kwaMashu ehostel nakhona ubugebengu ngendlela obudlange ngayo, abantu bebulawa emini ngenxa yokungaphephi kwemphakathi. Ingakho siye sathatha ke isinqumo sokuthi ake sibheke ukuthi noma amaphoyisa ephethwe lapha yakuzwelonke, kodwa nathi njengesifundazwe kufanele ukuthi kube khona inhlaka noma imizamo esiyenzayo yokuqinisa ukuphepha emphakathini yethu, kube ukuthi kukhona even izimali esizozifaka ekutheni qiniswa kanjani ezokuphepha kanye nokuthi kuliswana kanjani nobugebengu, okuhlanganisa nokusebenzisa ubuchwepheshe ekulwisaneni nobugebengu obudlangile kuzona zonke indawo, ngoba kuyinkolelo yethu ukuthi singaba nakho konke ukuthuthuka komnotho, singaba nakho konke ukwenziwa kwezidingo ngqangi, kodwa uma ngabe kunobugebengu konke lokho kungaphenduka izeleze uma ngabe abantu behlala ngokusaba, behlala ngokungazi ukuthi impilo zabo ziphephe kangakanani. Sizoqhubeka ke nokuthi sibheke indlela eziningi zokuletha idingo emphakathini. Odabeni lamanzi nje sinawo amakomiti kuma district wonke adila namanzi, ongqongqoshe bonke bajutshwe ukuthi bahlale kulawo makomiti axazulula inkinga zamanzi kusebenzisana nomnyango wezamanzi kazwelonke. Inkinga esibhekene nayo enye enkulu yokuhlukumezwa kwabantu besifazane kanye nezingane iyenye yezinhlaka cubungula kabanzi bese sibheka nezinhlelo esibe nazo ngonyaka odlule nezinhlelo esizoba nazo kulonyaka ukuthi silwisane nokuhlukumezwa nokunukubezwa kwezingane kanye nabantu abadala kanye futhi nesihluku esibhekiswe kubantu besifazane kanye nezingane kanye nokubulawa kwabantu besifazane nezingane. Siyakubona ke ukuthi kukhona konke lokhu ofanele sikwenze ngokubambisana nokusebenza ngokubambisana siminyango ehlukahlukene. Kubalekile ke ukuthi uma senza lokho imiphakathi yethu ibe ingxenye yokuthuthuka nokuthuthukisa indawo zabo ngoba angeke thina siwuhulumeni senza lutho uma ngabe imiphakathi ingasiyona ingxenye yokuzithuthukisa kanye futhi nokuthuthuka. Inhlelo ke zonke esinazo esizobe sikhuluma ngazo kuhlanganisa ukusebenzisa kobuxhakaxhaka ukwakha amathuba omsebenzi lokho ekuthiwa i-technology noma i-digital economy. Iy'nhlaka lezi esibonile kuzokuba imanje nezinhlelo esibonile ziletha kakhulu amathuba omsebenzi osomabhizinisi abancane kusukela ngonyaka odlule siqale nalezi zinhlelo ukuthi sizigxilise ekabanzi. Sibonile abantu abasha abaningi bevula amabhizinisi wabo ukusebenzisa ubuxhakaxhaka kanye futhi nokuthi nezinhlelo esifundisa ngazo abantu abasha kwi-technology njengalo hulumeni. Sizokubheka ke nokusebenza kwabasebenzi bahulumeni noma ukusebenza kahulumeni nje uwonkana ngoba kuyinkolelo yethu ukuthi mangabe sifuna ukuphumelela njengalo hulumeni kofanele ukuthi wonke umuntu osebenzela uhulumeni azi ukuthi injongo yalo hulumeni ibhekephi ekwenzeni lesi sifundazwe ukuthi sibe ngesinye sihamba phambili ekwakheni kwamathuba omsebenzi nasekuthuthukiseni imiphakathi yethu. Ingakho ke kubalekile ukuthi kusukela kumuntu ohleli lapha etafuleni mangabe umphakathi umuntu noma ilungu lomphakathi lifike emahhovisi kahulumeni kuya kumuntu othatha ingcingo uma ngabe abantu noma umphakathi ufonela idingo zakahulumeni. Bonke labo bantu kufanele bazi ukubaleka kokusebenzela umphakathi nanokusebenza ngokuzimisela nangokuhlonipha uma ngabe sizisebenzi zemphakathi. Ingakho ke sizogxilisa kakhulu ekutheni uma ngabe sisebenza ngabe izinto esizenzayo zinawo umthelela omuhle ekushintsheni impilo zabantu noma simosha nje isikhathi nezimali ngendlela esisebenza ngayo njengohulumeni. Ziningi ke ezinye inhlelo njengoba bese ngishilo ezihlanganisa ukuvuselelwa komnotho wezokuvakasha ukuvuselelwa komnotho we-transport ukulungiswa kwemigaqo kanye futhi nokuhlela ezokuhamba lapha esifundazweni saKwaZulu-Natal kuhlanganisa ukusebenza nohulumeni kazwelonke kule minyango engekho kakhulukazi kwisifundazwe ekutheni kodwa ibe iyingxenye yokuthi ikwazi ukusimamisa umnotho wethu njengesifundazwe salapha KwaZulu-Natal. Ngiyathemba ukuthi ey'nhlelweni zethu angeke sikushiye ngaphandle ukuthi isifundazwe sethu siyisifundazwe esiney'ndawo zasemakhaya kakhulu. Ingakho ezokulima noma ezolimo zizobamba futhi iqhaza eliphakeme neqhaza elisemqoka ekutheni sithuthukise ngalo umnotho siphinde futhi sakhe ngalo amathuba omsebenzi. Siyayazi inkinga esibhekene nayo yokuguquguquka kwesimo sezulu esikubonayo ukuqhubeka namanje kumosha ingqalasizinda esinayo. Ingakho ke khona maduze sizoba nengqungquthela esizoyibamba nezinhlaka ehlukahlukene ukudingida siphinde sibone ukuthi ohulumeni bonke uhulumeni ekazwelonke uhulumeni wesifundazwe kanye nomasipala ngabe sikulindele kangakanani noma sikulungele kangakanani ukumelana nokuguquguquka kwesimo sezulu kanye nezinhlekelele eziza nokuguquguquka kwesimo sezulu. Ngiyacabanga ke ukuthi kuzona zonke inhlelo esizobe sikhuluma ngazo sizokwenza isiqiniseko sokuthi asikhulumi nje kepha yonke into ibonakala ngezenzo. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. We'll then take 2 rounds of questions. If you just please state your name, media house, and to ask your question.
My name is Thomas from Kenya. Have you received any briefing from the SARS in relation to the investigations when it comes to the Kenyan and Tibet on the case? But also, you just mentioned the rise of shooting incidents in the province, including that of traditional leaders and community members. Does the provincial government, does the province have enough police to fight crime? But also, what are some of the interventions from the provincial government in this regard? What do you think should be done to curb the spread of violence in the province? Thank you.
These comments from SoundCloud. According to a parliamentary committee report from in November, talking about the rise of the flood damage, but also we had the rise before that which caused a lot of damage. In KwaZulu-Natal alone, according to this report, the total amount required for post-disaster recovery was estimated at 17.8 billion, against an available national contingency reserve fund of just 5 billion. So my question is, where is the province hoping or planning to get the funds to complete the infrastructure repairs, and what is government's response to businesses' concerns that the repairs are taking slow, that it's a bit slow?
Any more questions, please?
Linda Bata from KwaZulu-Natal. Premier, you mentioned in the way now you do have water committees in all municipalities or districts. How long they've been there? How far are they in trying maybe to deal with water issues or challenges in the communities? And also, you've made a call while we were there, addressing, or in your opening address, saying that there must be a follow-up in everything that government does. Why do you make that call? Do you think there's no follow-up? You mentioned the mortality deeds and also the lives of farm dwellers. 3, there was a community protest in Ghana. Department of Transport went there to meet with the protesting community. Have you received a report on that? And how far are they, or maybe what they're going to be doing in trying to resolve Mgwaqo or weak bed condition? And yeah, I think that should be all.
Okay, please.
Premier, you spoke about the issue of the provincial energy plan. Unpack that for us. How is it going to work? What is it? How are you going to action it? When are you going to action it? Number 2, your province is currently in the effect, and as we speak, Police Minister General is about to release crime statistics in Parliament. It's not looking good for the province. I can pretty much tell you that. How do you plan to fight crime in your province, besides the political rhetoric? Practically, what is the plan to deal with this? As we speak, I'm not sure whether you've been briefed. A crime activist in Among which was banned down. Are you not worried about the possibility of instability in that part of the province, which is linked to the cross-border crime that is happening in the northern part of the province? On the issue of water, surely by now the province ought to have dealt decisively with water challenges. When we were Culture MCs, we attended a number of community protests over the issue of water. But clearly, some of those have not been resolved. What is the issue? And this plan that we talk about, I remember when Premier Nomusa was still in charge, the province went deep on trying to deal decisively with the issue of water. But your ANC-led government does not seem to carry it out. What is the problem? And I'll stop there for now. Come back to the second.
Nomusa Dube-Ncube from Region of Africa. I just want to expand on my colleague's question from Times Live regarding the aging infrastructure. This is something the former Premier brought up in last year's report, and obviously that was exacerbated by the 8 of floods. But
colleagues, we will allow the Premier to respond to the questions before we then go on to our second and final round of questions.
I wish we would change rules. Me there, you here. No, thank you, colleagues, for those questions. On the question by Untlantla, and I think it's the same as Ugoke. You would see what is happening. First of all, we cannot discuss the case because of obvious reasons, but also we need to be sensitive to the families and not in respect. But generally, yes, we are in a very difficult position as a province in terms of crime. There has been successes by police in fighting crime. I just want to be upfront with that. When we looked at the numbers of arrests that the people in the police had done, it was really showing good progress. However, I take an example of a person that was involved in the violent shootings at Claremont in different incidents. That person was arrested by the police, by the way. In fact, the group that was involved in those, you remember they were happening in different weeks, they were arrested. The unfortunate thing is that 2 of them had been out on parole, and meaning that they were repeat offenders, and meaning that the police had done their work to arrest, and the justice system had done its work to punish those people. But once the people are out, they go back to the same crimes. And the question is, why are people resorting to criminality? And there's a number of factors that could be attributed to that. And I don't think we're going to go through that now. But the important question is, what are we doing about it? The one area that we spoke about that at least it's within our capacity as the province is what kind of resources can we put aside to supplement or to complement the work that is being done by the police, because at the end of the day, the policing might be a national matter, but it affects us directly as the people of KwaZulu-Natal. And so that's the first thing, is that we need to put resources in a form of all things that are needed by the police to fight crime. The second part is that crime happens within communities. And unless communities themselves ensures that we rid our communities of criminals, we will never be able to stop crime, even if police were to stand in each house. But if criminals are still inside and people not pointing out that these are criminals in my house, they must get out and be arrested, we'll never be able to fight crime. So communities are central to the issues of crime prevention and fighting crime, because a crime happens here, and the criminal will go across the road. And if people do not say, this is the criminal, we've seen this person, police, call a toll-free number or whatever, the person gets arrested, we will never be able to deal decisively with crime. So our plan is that we need to empower communities. We need to work with the establishment of community policing structures, community police forums that will really go back to what we used to see, where communities every week will sit down and analyze their areas, will sit down and say, what is it that is needed in this area? Do we need more police? Do we need more investigators? Do we need this? Do we need this? So that we can deal with crime as communities. So our call really is that communities need to take back their streets. Communities need to stand up and work with the police in fighting crime and criminals. Besides that, we can put extra cars. Last year, you saw that as a province, we got in December 2,000 new police from the recruitment that happened. And we are going to be getting another from the uptake or from the police that are going to be graduating again this year. We're going to be getting another substantial number. But even with all those numbers of police, as I was saying, unless communities are part of working and helping police to police, but also to take a charge of ensuring that we adopt a no-nonsense kind of a stance to criminals living amongst us. So that's what we're planning in terms of capacitating the structures, in terms of putting financial resources in support of the work that the police are doing, but also in ensuring that we use technology and we support police using technology in the policing space. The reconstruction of the flood damage. Yes, it is true that the estimates were close to 17 billion of everything, but for the infrastructure alone, it was estimated to 5 billion. And so far, we have been able to mobilize resources such as the more than 300 odd million for houses of the people that are presently in shelters to build their permanent houses. So far, we have been able to get money for all the major roads, whether it's N2, M4, P roads, the South Basin. All those resources have been mobilized so far to reconstruct those major arterial roads. We're working with the SANRAL and other entities that are helping us as implementing agents so as to fast track the reconstruction and the rehabilitation of those major arterial roads. We have also discussed at this Lekgotla the possibilities of working with local municipalities, because we can see that there is a growing trend now of trucks diverting from their major arterial roads into the small roads. And those roads are becoming more dangerous, and municipalities, unfortunately, some of them do not have capacity, whether finances or technically, to repair those damaged roads. So we are starting, there are 2 municipalities already where we are going to be doing transfers to those municipalities for road constructions, but also others that we would find if they have capacity, we will be working with those municipalities, because other roads belong to municipalities and other roads belong to the province. But we've now taken a decision that we cannot just fold our arms and watch while these bad roads are creating a lot of stress to communities as well as to business, because the bad state of roads are also hindering the agriculture, are hindering economic development and a lot of other things that we wish to do if we do not have good road infrastructure. So those are some of the plans that we have in place. And so far, all the roads that I'm talking about, the big arterial roads, have got the budget. Other infrastructure are budgeted on the multi-year, meaning that it's not going to be done in 1 year, but it's going to be done in 3 years or 2 years. As you would know that for hospitals, almost, and clinics, those were done. For schools, not all the schools have been finished. That's why you would still see their mobiles in other schools. For water infrastructure and sanitation, the major one was the Inanda main one that was affecting the northern beaches. That one is completed. They are now doing the trials to see whether that infrastructure has now been completely done. And for water that was totally destroyed in the north, in Tongati, that one has been replaced and it's now up and running. Of course, the window period is not complete as yet to see whether it's back to normality. And other major water infrastructures have been repaired. It is true that we do have these water committees that we've put in place, and we've just done in the last quarter. We did the functionality of those water committees, and I would say there are 2 that were not functional, namely Zululand and King Cetshwayo. Those 2 were not functional. But other water committees are functional and they are making interventions. It is because of these water committee and the work that the water committees have done that we are now going to be putting finances aside to deal with the problems that are faced in some of those areas. What we need to understand, particularly with the water infrastructure, is that it is a sector that is highly regulated, in that you would know that we do not have provincial departments of water. Water is only in the there's only National Minister of Water and Sanitation, and ours is to support municipalities with reticulation. But municipalities do get what is called the MWIC and RBIG, as well as all the grants that they get for water infrastructure. And what we've now been looking at is to quantify to what extent is the money that is being given to municipalities actually doing what it's supposed to do. Because the provincial or the national government will go in as far as the bulk, in as far as the raw water, but the reticulation, which is the opening of the tap, is the municipal function, and it's regulated because municipalities are water service authorities. But we have now taken a decision that in many instances we are going to be intervening. There is a lot of work that we've done before, like this one. So we are hoping that we will get cooperation from municipalities in giving support. And the money that we have put aside, we are hoping that it will hit the ground fairly quickly. We have identified what is called hotspot districts, although our worry is that even other municipalities who never used to have water problems like eThekwini, all of a sudden, because of what is called non-revenue water, because of the infrastructure that is aging or the infrastructure that is not repaired regularly, they're now experiencing problems. And we are now also seeking capacity to support eThekwini to deal with its water challenges. But as I said, these are water service authorities and they get money. Monies go directly to these municipalities for water infrastructure and water repairs, but also through the equitable share, because these are grants that I'm talking about. But even besides the the grants that they get. There is what is called the equitable share, which is supposed to be for water and sanitation, as well as the waste removal, what we called utilities. Municipalities also get those monies directly to their accounts. And what we need to work with is to ensure that those monies are spent where they are supposed to be spent. Because what we've seen is that often than not, monies are spent not where they are supposed to be spent. They will either be spent on salaries, they'll either be spent on other things, and only to find that you cannot, put the money in a leakage where there's a leakage, as we call it sometimes. The follow-up that we are talking about is what we've experienced as government is that government would do a lot of investment in different infrastructure. Be they you support small farmers, people that have got their land back, they are given the land, but they're not trained on how to utilize that land. They are not supported with making sure that that land become productive. And so those are the kind of things that we think are important. People are given loans through whether it's the Growth Fund or Itala, and their land, SMMEs are given loans to start up their businesses. But what is lacking is training and support and incubation of those small businesses so that they can be able to stand. Because we find that a number of small businesses are given funding, and the minute they get money, they spend it elsewhere. They don't invest that money back into business. And we feel that that is creating a lot of problems, because while on the other side, you would say you've empowered so many people with funding for SMMEs, in a year, 2 years' time, those SMMEs will collapse because there's no follow-through, there's no support, there's no incubation, there's no training. But also it costs us because those loans, they're not able to pay those loans back. So it becomes really a vicious cycle that says, unless we're able to say, what do we do on the side and how do we complement what we are doing so that we can maximize the effectiveness. I made an example, for instance, that we have a number of investments that come through in our province, and even expansion of a number of companies. But you'd find that as you rejoice from having that company coming to invest, another company, on the other side of the province is closing down or shutting down. And all of those things requires us to pay attention to everything that we do, what we've done behind, what we're doing moving forward. How do we navigate all those spaces? Because businesses have been hardest hit through the economic meltdown globally, not just locally. There's a lot of factors that have affected business, how they are conducting their business. So if we are to retain a lot of businesses, we need to pay attention as well to what are the issues that are a problem for businesses to expand or to reinvest in our areas. So we believe that if we were to really pay specific attention to what we do, whether it's impactful, whether it's effective, whether it's stable, we work forward while behind things are not progressing. So that's why we're speaking about this, a number of follow-through, but also monitoring and evaluation, which need to take the center stage of, are we doing what is right? Is it impactful? Is it value for money? Do we have the right skills at the right place to do what we want to do? Yeah, that's the water problems. I think I have been able to articulate the plan on the water problems and what it is that we are doing. Boreholes, we are repairing a number of boreholes, rudimentary schemes. We are also trying to have more of storage facilities for water because municipalities spend huge amount of monies with these water tankers, and it's not sustainable because number of them, they're collapsing because they don't have money, because it's being spent on this rental of these water tankers, but also people do not get water because sometimes the water gets finished before it reaches other areas. Instead, when we would have invested on storage so that the tankers go and store water into different static tanks so that people can get water at any given time. So we have measures that we really designing for each one of the areas and the problems that we've identified through the water crisis committee that we've set up. On the aging infrastructure, yes, it is a problem. We have spoken to the national government to say probably it's about time that we come with legislation that legislates the monies for repairs and maintenance. Because right now, repairs and maintenance is part of your overall budget. And now when you have a choice of either building a new facility or going back to repair the other pipe, other people choose to go forward instead of repairing the infrastructure so that you don't waste money. The other measures that we are putting in place is investing in technology. You know, a lot of our infrastructure is also not geotech. Now, when the pipe bursts, sometimes people don't even know which part of that pipe or where you got to go good looking or humble bega le pipe because our infrastructure is not geotech. So we saying every new infrastructure must be geotech. At this day and age, there's no need for us to not be geoteching our information, but also to help us to see whether that infrastructure is there or not there, but also value for money and be able to know what is the lifespan of this infrastructure. But anybody else who want to see that infrastructure can just geotech it and know that it's there, it's in that corner, it's this size diameter, it's pointing that direction or that direction. So a lot of work really, we think that will help us to sustain good work that has happened, that has been done by government, is to really look back and see some of the leakages in the system. But also the improving of the way we have been doing things as government. The issue of Nkandla, as you would know that MEC Hlomuga did convene a stakeholder meeting to discuss the matters of Nkandla with the traditional leadership as well as with the other structures. So there is work that is happening in there. The department has also tabled a plan of addressing that infrastructure problems there, such as the fixing and the upgrading of the roads in Nkandla. Working with the SANRAL and the IDT as our implementing agency, we believe that that work will start soon. But also we are now looking at how do we involve communities. There used to be a very good project, Zibambele, that gave ownership to communities, local communities, to create jobs for them, but also to maintain roads in their particular areas. We're now looking at how do we revive that kind of a program, because it is a good program, because it says to local people themselves, they are able to maintain the strip of road, but also they create their own jobs and the sustainability of those projects that we are doing.
There's a question on the provincial energy plan. What are we doing
Oh.
on that front? The NCA.
On the energy plan, we are looking at various modes of energy. We spoke about the biomass that we've implemented before, that we want to upscale. We've had discussions last week with the Department of Energy. We had a meeting with them last week in the province. They are helping us with the funding for more electrification projects, but also energy projects. We are also exploring a number of government buildings that we want to budget for this year to install with solar panels, but also use a lot of energy saving mechanisms. We are looking at the hydro as the province. So we're looking at all, and we have been discussing with the municipalities. eThekwini is quite advanced in their energy plan, which will see even a lot of energy from eThekwini being, or even businesses that will sell to government, but also that will allow us to free some amount of energy that we are using as a province. We are also exploring the wind, but in the main, the one that we are looking at, it's biogas, biomass, hydro, solar. Already, if you look at a few buildings now, the one that's just here, a Mayville copter, if you stand here, you'll see it's got solar panels. And we feel that that will also help us to save on the utility costs. As the energy increases, as government, we're paying for energy use. So we think if we invest in a number of energy saving mechanisms, it will help us. You had the president spoke about communities that will be assisted with solar geysers. We're already discussing with the department. You also heard of the help that we're going to be giving to small businesses in them getting the energy saving mechanisms. So all of that form part of our energy plan.
Okay, colleagues, we'll then take one final round of questions and allow the colleagues to please return to chair the meeting inside. Okay, one last question here.
Mama Lekgotla from KCAP. Can you give us the latest update regarding the floods in the province and the impact? All districts were said to have been affected, Mkhanya, Zululand, Majuba, and King Frederick. There were reports of 6 people who passed away due to the latest floods. Your province is one of those that have been declared as disaster areas out of 7 provinces. Can we have the latest in that regard? But number 2, I did not hear much in terms of the input when you were inside regarding ailing municipalities and challenges that we are facing. A number of them in your province are under administration and they lack basic technical human resources and they are facing financial challenges. What are you doing to fix that?
Okay, one last question from
Adding on what the commander has said about the flooding incidents in the north, I just want to know how far are the search and rescue teams with regards to 2 people that were reported to be missing, but also do we know as it stands as to how much of that damage contribute to the already existing damage worth with 25 billion rand in the province? But also, I remember, Premier, there was an issue of provincial departments having to sacrifice some of their budget to help with the damage that is worth 25 billion rand. Do you know as it stands as to how much has been used, how much is still needed to go, and how far are you as a province the province is quite relieved from that. A lot of roads is still destroyed. There are still a lot of damages that were caused by the floods that have not yet been taken care of. As it stands, we know what the provincial government is taking care of.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. We'll then take the last round of responses from the Premier and then allow her to continue with the meeting.
Right. Thank you. The latest about floods. It's true that we had a total of 6 fatalities, and King Cetshwayo, Umkhanyakude, Umzinyathi, Amajuba in the north. Those are the districts that were the biggest casualties of this recent rains. Assessment is still ongoing. As we talk, there was a national disaster meeting that was called by the national minister just now at 10 o'clock. We're getting a report on what then are we going to be doing moving forward in terms of that declaration that has been made, including our province. The assessment so far indicates that there are about 139 homes that have been destroyed, with 158 partially destroyed or damaged by the storm. But as I indicate, the disaster management teams are still on the ground with the assessment. And in terms of the roads and bridges across the province that have been affected, that will also be part of that assessment. We do wish to extend really our condolences to the families of Nokulunga Mkhunu, of Tulane Mabaso, 52 years old, of Downhauser, both Nokulunga and Mabaso Nomkhunu, they are from Downhauser, and Hadebe from Endumeni, Kulisile Msweli from Mtubatuba, and Lindani Dlamini from Ejozini, and the family of the 3-month-old infant in Newcastle. We really extend our condolences to the families, but our teams are there supporting all those families and the communities. Yes, it is true that, sorry, it is true that the Buthelezi and the Buthelezi family that was swept both at Endumeni local municipalities, as you'd hear, you might have seen it on the news that those bodies were recovered, and we are very grateful with the work of the search and rescue, but they also continue to work to ensure that any other casualties that have been as a result of this recent rains are supported and assisted. The ailing municipalities in the province, we are continuously working with in support of municipalities. There are a number of interventions that are there. However, the South African Constitution and the local government system dictates that municipalities must govern in their own right. It dictates that each sphere of government is interdependent, interrelated, but that it also dictates that national and provincial government must support municipality in terms of Section 152 and Section 154. So, using those sections of supporting municipalities, that is why we then have plans that we put in place of supporting municipalities, those ailing municipalities. But all in all, when all is said and done, it's the responsibility of the municipality to govern in its own right and be able to take correct decisions that are in the best interest of its citizens as well as of its good governance. And unfortunately, I can't say the same for many municipalities where we are seeing regression in terms of where our municipalities were a few years ago and the downslope that we are experiencing, but we are not sitting and doing nothing about it. If need be, we do use the Constitution to intervene within the ambit of the law, and we'll continue to do that in the interest of our communities.
Thank you so much to the Premier and to all of you colleagues. May you please release the Premier and allow her to continue with her meeting of the Lekgotla.